And away we go.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another generational episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 374, recorded Monday, June 6th, 2022. Tonight, we're talking about Men from Alex Garland. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randu. What's up, man?
I've always been a creeper.
How do? Just got back from NOLA. Got a little Gilbert in me at the moment.
Gilbert in me. I don't know if that's what you want fresh off the plane.
Speak for yourself.
Randu, how many po' boys did you take down?
Just the one, but it was about as big as a human baby, so I think counts for two.
Yeah, that was a lot of scramps. I know you had the beef, right? The roast.
Dude,
roast
yeah, I
beef.
ordered a beef. I thought it was gonna be like sliced beef, but that shit was like just like stewed beef on a roll. And it was good, but Jesus Christ, I felt like I had been tranked right afterwards.
The itis. You got the itis, Randy.
That gut real estate. Last but not least, calling in from South Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up, it's your boy? Mind stains.
I'm a man.
I'm a mind. Bob, you introduced
Classic.
this film incorrectly. I believe the title is Mangs.
The Mangs.
Alex Garland's Mangs.
Mangs. So let's just go ahead and set the record straight right
Incredible.
there.
It's incredible how
Uh-huh.
long and fucking consistent that joke has been.
2018.
It
going
is-
strong.
I think it's older than that. I think we've been saying that shit for fucking decade at this point.
Do you
Cool.
recall the exact origin of that? Because I do not.
I kind of do, because I think it's when I went to Japan and I was like, I'm headed to Japan, man. And I just like, for
Japan.
some reason it rhymed.
I think you typoed it maybe.
And
then
now
it
we're
became
stuck.
Mang.
I'm headed
We're
to
stuck.
Japan, man. And ever since
It's
then,
really
Mang has been a staple.
Buddy, you're never gonna get closer to hearing how the sausage is made than that.
Wow.
We just let loose our whole creative process.
What a treat for all the listeners, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a history right there.
Well, before we get into the review, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. We do have a July poll pick currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're going to talk about this July. The theme for July is Animals Run Amok, and the three movies are Lake Placid, Arachnophobia, and Island of Dr. Moreau.
Whoa, Bob. How's that new
Yo.
poll looking? How them numbers looking?
Man, it's another close one. Lake Placid is in first place, followed by Arachnophobia and then Dr. Moreau, but they're all within a single vote of each other.
Whoa,
Oh,
all
damn.
right. Tight race.
Very close.
I like to see that.
You like a toy race.
Yeah.
We keep it tight around here.
Well,
In a very
Keep it
loose
real.
manner.
yeah.
The loose-
In the loosest sense.
When I
keep it
say
tight.
we, I mean somebody else. I mean the listeners.
Nailed it. Make sure you get those votes in before the end of the month. We'll see what we're talking about this July. In other Patreon news, we're going to be dropping a new mini cast this Friday. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole backlog of mini episodes you can find only on Patreon. We're going to be dropping a review of the first season of the sci-fi show Chucky.
Whoa, Bob. You watched that, am I correct? That's you talking.
That's me talking. I synced it with my own two eyeballs.
I mean,
so.
it's a pretty safe bet it wasn't me.
I am
If we're
curious.
being real.
I'm curious about what's going on there with the Chucky show.
There is a lot. And, I'll give you a little teaser right here. There is not one, but two Devon Sawas in this show.
Oh,
Two
my
different Devon Sawas?
God.
I'm a sour boy.
I'm a Sawa
Two
boy.
different men named Devon Sawa?
Like,
Yeah.
like
There's two Mangs by that name.
two whole different Mangs? Sawa Mangs? No, he just plays two characters. So if you're a Sawa boy like I am, you're going to fucking love it.
All right. Well, that's not got me quite sold, but intrigued. Not quite the sour boy you are, Bob, but still.
Well, obviously so. Check that out over on Patreon this Friday. And of course, you can drop that RSS feed into your podcatcher of choice and listen to it on iTunes or wherever you prefer to do so. That's all we got for the Patreon. Do you guys have anything you want to throw out there?
Not at all.
I think my house is clean.
All right. One final thing. I want to remind everybody we're back this Friday for our Joe Bob watch party, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joe Bob does his double feature, and we throw out a Zoom link on all of our social media outlets just before showtime. You just click that link, throw you over into a watch party where we chat about all the nonsense Joe Bob is showing and talking about, and it's usually a really good time, if I do say so myself. And that's it. Yeah, Joe Bob this Friday. Mark your calendars. I think our house is clean.
Oh, shit.
This house is clean.
Bob?
Now, we're getting into the main event, kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Mangs from 2022, written and directed by Alex Garland, our good friend, personal friend, Alex Garland.
Yep. I
Call
wonder
him
what
Al.
he thinks about this title we've rebranded.
I'm sure he fucking loves it.
Alex Garlang? He loves
Yeah.
it.
Garlang.
Garlang.
By the end of this, we're gonna have our own straight chilling dialect.
Yeah.
Two
It's the
legs.
devolution of the English language for
all
sure.
all
Oh, yeah.
the A's have twangs.
Playing Mang. It's rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 40 minutes. Stars Jesse Buckley, Roy Kinnear, Papao Isido. Plot synopsis brought to us by IMDb is as follows. A young woman goes on a solo vacation to the English countryside following the death of her ex-husband. Gentle Mangs, this is a brand new release, so I'm sure it is indeed our first time watch. Would you recommend people check this out? Juice, kick us off.
Not a strong recommend. I really like Alex Garland, and all the stuff that you've made so far has really impressed me. This was not particularly one of them. I think this is my least favorite Alex Garland film that I'm aware of. It's okay. But I don't think this is definitely not one where I'd be like, you need to go to the theater to see this film. I would not say that. I would say maybe check it out if you're curious. Alex Garland, I still think he's like a good filmmaker, but this is a very strange particular story that's not super easy to kind of accept or process as you're watching it. So it takes quite a bit of effort, I believe. So yeah, I don't eventually, maybe check it out, but it's not a strong recommend from me. Bob, how do you feel about Mangs?
I'm on the same page. I think we all kind of dig Alex Garland for the most part. And, speaking for all of us here, I think we all probably went into this with fairly high expectations, looking forward to it. Ultimately, yeah, I would say wait for this to hit a streaming device, Netflix, wherever it lands, Hulu. Check it out there. It's definitely it's my least favorite of his works. It's not like a total, pile or anything, but I would say, watch it at your leisure. Randy.
Well, thank God for that.
A pile of mangs. Whoa.
Pile of mangs.
It ain't a pile, but yeah, I guess I kind of echo your sentiments. This is definitely it was lower on the Garland scale for me personally, and I would say that if you're going into a Garland movie for the visuals, maybe go check it out in theaters. But otherwise, I don't know that I really have a strong recommendation except for fans of his work or fans of sort of like allegorical, sort of lyrical movies. If that makes any sense? There's a lot of heavy lifting done by the audience, as Justin pointed out, in terms of like sort of like making this make a kind of sense. And so if that's not what you're down for, if you're not down for a thinker, this is not for you. It took me a few days to really codify what I actually thought about the movie. So loose recommend, very loose.
So the exact opposite of Straight Chilling Podcast, this is just a very loose recommendation, extra loose from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning and we'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, do you have that plot synopsis? Do you even A24?
I got it. I A24, dog. I A25. I A26.
All right.
Got them all.
Oh shit.
Let's see.
All right. Here is the full plot synopsis of Manx. Our main character, Harper Marlowe, decides to take a vacation in a small village after her husband James's apparent suicide. Through a series of flashbacks, we see Harper plan to divorce James, and he threatens her with suicide and eventually hits her, leading to him being locked out of their apartment. He goes to their friend's apartment upstairs, and he either jumps off their balcony or slips off trying to climb down to their own balcony. Harper arrives at the beautiful college and is greeted by the owner, Jeffrey, who gives her a tour of the beautiful, beautiful home she is renting. Harper takes a walk. She ends up being chased and stalked by a naked man. She calls the police. The man is then arrested. She later explores an old church and grieves the loss of her husband. She meets a vicar who looks very similar to Jeffrey, who tries to blame her for her husband's death. She also meets a young boy who looks kind of like a younger Jeffrey, who ends up calling her a bitch because she won't play with him. Harper goes to a pub, bumps into Jeffrey there and a police officer who also looks like him. The officer informs the naked man was released as they had no grounds to keep him detained. Harper calls her friend Riley and explains what's been happening. Riley plans to join Harper, but the cell phone signal is interrupted before Harper can share her address. Harper ends up seeing the policeman standing in the yard, who is unresponsive when she calls to him. He then turns into the boy and charges at her. A crow ends up breaking through the window. Jeffrey arrives to search the premises and see what's going on. He then turns into the naked man who chases Harper. She closes the door and stabs him through the hand with a knife as he reaches in through the mail slot. He then pulls his arm back through, cutting it in half, which is a very shocking sequence. The vicar arrives at the house with a similar arm wound. He tries to rape Harper. She escapes, tries to drive away in the car, accidentally running over Jeffrey. He steals the car from her and wrecks it. The naked man reappears with a broken ankle, who gives birth to the boy, who then gives birth to the vicar, and then eventually gives birth to Jeffrey, and finally gives birth to her husband, James, which is wild. Harper and James sit down on a couch and have a little bit of a talk. Harper asks what he wants, and he just replies he wants her love. Riley then arrives at the house and follows a blood trail to find Harper sitting in the yard alone, smiling. Roll credits. All right, boys. What do we think? What do we think about this?
Wild is quite mild.
Yeah, it is.
Juice, the first thing I have to know is, how did you react to the scene?
The birthing scene.
Oh yes,
I
you
think
know
I
the
was
scene.
texting you. I was like, "This is bonkers." It actually, like it actually,
Uh-huh.
like I usually, you would suspect that I would be like squeamish or look away, but I was like, "What is this? What is
Yeah.
I
happening?
really
What is
thought that you would
going
be
on?" I mean,
hardly in your seat.
one of them comes out of the dude's mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not
There-
like it was, it's super realistic in any kind of sense. It's
there's like
Mhm.
what?
a vaginal birth, and then there's like almost a C-section out of like the dude's back. And then like feet first out of the mouth. It's just like
Yeah.
whatever orifice you can find, there's a body coming out of it.
Whew. I want to start off by saying I could not help it. Like it was like throughout the whole film, I just kept feeling this scenes after scenes was like, holy God, it just felt like a straight up like mashup of Mother and Antichrist. I just kept seeing those films just smashed
interesting.
together over and over.
I can
I
see
did
that.
not see
a
the
lot of
Antichrist,
Mother.
but yeah, Mother is the one that I kept thinking of, and it's so weird that like just like the morning before I saw this film, I had a discussion with somebody about the movie Mother and how much it bugs me that people are either like people you either say that it's too difficult to understand and so it's pretentious, or it's too easy to understand so it's pretentious. And I'm like, I fucking hate that. Fucking a movie can just like an allegory can just be a symbol, like a movie with heavy symbolism can just be what it is. It doesn't need to cater itself to your particular intelligence, dickhead.
I think I don't want to compare this to Mother too directly, but like my takeaway from Mother is like there's a lot in Mother that is obvious, but also I think there's the more you think about Mother, the more rewarding the film is. And my experience in watching Men was like by the end of it, I was like, man, did I just miss a lot in there? Because it's not a straightforward story. I was like, I think I got the point, but like, am I just so dense that I can't see, what like is Alex Garland like really trying to tell me more than I think he is? And that like I thought about it day after day, and I was like, man, I just don't know that there is much more to it. And I did a little bit of research and read some like interviews with him and stuff, and I was like, I'm not getting any more out of this like I did Mother. I think it just is sort of as blunt as it appears to be from what I can tell.
Yeah, and you might be right, but also Mother had the benefit and deterrence of having the director just come out and say, "Oh yeah, this is what it's about."
Oh yeah.
So that kind of puts a weird point on that one, but yeah, I don't want to compare it too much either because I don't want to get my feelings on both intertwined. But I will say that walking out of the theater, they kind of were, just because that was fresh on my mind, and this movie shares so much with Mother. It's that dream logic taken to an extreme. That like, and it goes largely unexplained. You kind of have to put it together yourself. And yeah, just like Mother, it has like, it feels like it has like, okay, I understand what's saying here. I understand what's saying here. And then, yeah, I had the same feeling, Bob, at the end where I was like, okay, either I missed some heavy duty shit that is going to like, reward me for thinking over and continue on, or it really just kind of is what it is, and there's not more to it. And the more I've been thinking about it, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen it. I think it might be the latter. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely some like cultural touch, like not cultural, but like I don't know, like the shit like the Green Man face and the like stones and like architecture or whatever, and some of the symbolism I'm sure was over my head, because I feel like Alex Garland was trying to do a mix of like Mother and like a Robert Eggers movie where it's like using stuff from, as far back as ancient cultures to sort of inform this idea that he had. So I might have missed those things, but largely I don't think that the point has gone unnoticed by me.
Well, so I thought
not.
some of the combination is there's obviously a lot of Christian biblical references to one end, and I thought it tried to do this kind of like spiritualism versus paganism, or like Christianity versus paganism, or like Mother Nature versus like that kind of deal, Christianity, with some of that symbolism, the Green Bang, and because it very much kind of reminded me of like the Green Knight or that kind of look. I feel like we've seen it in a couple maybe A24 films recently, and that's why I kind of peeked at that too, like, oh, maybe this is where it's pulling from. But I mean, that was the deepest kind of allegory that I got outside of the main just general message is
Same, yeah.
this idea of the church or this established religion versus an idea of more like a natural state or something like that, which again kind of goes back to Mother, like the same idea of Mother.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christian allegories in both, but I think that like that is the most interesting aspect, because otherwise what you have is a movie that is just pointedly pointing out toxic masculinity and stuff, which is not a stone that's left unturned over the last few years by any means. There's been movies that have covered that before, but I think that the inclusion of a lot of biblical stuff, Christian stuff, was absolutely obviously intentional, but it was intentional into the sense that it's like pointing out how ancient this sort of like patriarchal ideas are, and how even something as seemingly ancient as the church is like hardwired through its it's self-sustaining and its misogyny. You know what I mean? And I think that is an interesting thing to talk about, but I don't know that it really builds on it more than what I just said, which is like I said, like fine, I'm okay with that, but I also wanted there to be more. I just wanted there to be more than just an observation,
Yeah, and it it sort of comments, or it doesn't even really comment. It highlights on like these various issues we see that are baked into like just everything, like the church, the police, like the landlord. Like nobody really fully buys into what this woman's trying to tell them. They sort of brush her off. They don't take her seriously, and it just like doesn't have a like anything to say about it. It's just like, hey, check out all this stuff that's really fucked up. It's really fucked up, right? But it doesn't. That's like all it has to say. There's no like viewpoint. There's no like lens that it's really looking through necessarily. I just want like some sort of opinion on it, other than just like, hey, all this shit's wrong, huh?
I thought there might be. So my kind of take on it was, or the deepest thing I could kind of pull out of it was the idea that, especially with the birthing scene, was that it is systematic and generational, in the same idea of like abuse or something like that. Because my whole take on that birthing scene was it starts with a naked man who I always just took as Adam, since we're going with this whole Garden of Eden, Eve kind of allegory. So I was like, the first one is the naked man is Adam. He births the teenager. I said, Adam, okay, births a son, births the idea of humanity, okay, who then births the priest or whatever, the vicar, who, okay, so Adam births a son, humanity, who births religion, who then births Jeffrey, who I was like is like society, following the rule, because they don't introduce like the police officer. So I was like, you don't even go to this. So I was like, it's society and what we've become, how we're all dressed up and sophisticated now. But then all those kind of culminated to like birth the guy, so he's just this combination of that long process of men or society or how it's evolved through the process. And that was like my deeper meaning is it's systematic, it's generational, it's passed down from father to son for generations and decades and stuff. And I was like, I mean, that's but
self-propagating.
There's
not a woman involved in that process.
The men,
which is kind of, I think, the interesting thing about it.
Birthing
the men self-propagating this attitude that is terrorizing this woman that they have, like that they're focused on, like as a group. At the end, they're all focused on. They're terrorizing this woman, but they're self-propagating the whole time. They don't need her to continue this attitude. They just need her attention and love. And it's like, so you don't get to actually be a person for yourself, basically.
Because they really are just taking what they need. Like, you're right, that she's not involved in that process at all, other than to be an object for them to desire or put blame upon or whatever.
And man, that's I think there's some in like kind of in like the thing is like all this stuff is very interesting, and to Rob's point, like I feel like it needed to say more, but I also don't think it says nothing. I think that like just in these few minutes we've been talking, like it put me on firmer ground that it's like, okay, this movie is like it's got something to say. It's just not groundbreaking stuff. It's really largely observational, and I don't need a movie to really be prescriptive. If just pointing out a problem can be enough, but the movie like feels like it is aspiring to do more, maybe, or maybe I wanted it to. Maybe it's on me in that regard, but you know, as an experience, I think that's where this movie shines. Like experientially watching it, just taking in, like I feel like I felt everything that Alex Garland wanted me to feel in the moments he wanted me to feel it, largely. I was, foreboding from top to bottom. I thought Rory Kinnear was incredible at all his different roles, especially Jeffrey, which was a fucking hilarious character, by the way. And I don't know. I don't know. I kind of lost my train there.
I feel like the horror of this movie, like to sort of piggyback on what you're saying, the horror beats land for me. I think they're really cool. The arm cutting scene when she's being chased in the tunnel, I feel like that whole tunnel sequence is like built very, very beautifully. Like she's having a good time. She's like making this weird like song out of like reverberations in the tunnel, and then there's just like this little silhouetted man who just like hauls ass after her, which is terrifying. The sequence where she's like locked up in the house, and like her phone starts doing the staticky thing, and it looks like her face is screaming. We're getting like little blips of that, like that lands well. The crow flying through the window was good. Like there's a lot of good horror sequences when the freaking vicar is like, he's got his arm that's split in half, like around her neck. That's like terrifying shit. Like all of the horror beats really land for me. I just want the story or the message, the metaphor, that it feels underwhelming. And potentially, like you were saying, it's just, we're sort of, we're just surrounded by all of these observations being made on a daily basis. And it just seems like this crazy art house movie just kind of doing the same thing, saying the same thing, or highlighting the same things that we see in the news literally every single day now is just like extremely underwhelming for us. I just want more, I guess.
And I think like the most interesting thing about it is what we just talked about, which is like again, like that's what makes the religious aspect to me most interesting about it, because that is one aspect that I think you could explore more, and I don't know this. I think this movie sort of like it makes a lot of like lip service to it, but it doesn't really talk about, like, at least outwardly, what that connection is. You're left to sort of like sort through that. Okay, yeah, it's talking about this, but what is it saying beyond that? It's cyclical. Is there more to this? What do you like? What is it about these old institutions that you want to say besides that they are what we already know they are?
Yeah. And the boyfriend at the end, I'm sort of confused about the character. Well, not her boyfriend, it's her husband, her ex-husband. Like when he says he just wants her love at the end, and she almost kind of like seems receptive to that, or in a way, or like her facial expression, I guess, is open for interpretation, but it seems like, is he just trying to gaslight or manipulate her again in the end, or is he being real? Is that scene supposed to signify potential hope for change, or is it just him gaslighting? Potentially the point is just for us to question what is happening in that scene, but I was a little bit confused by it. I don't know if you guys took anything away from that.
I think that's by far the most ambiguous thing about the movie. And to me, like, if you were to ask me, like, I mean, gun to my head, I would change my opinion like 3 times in an hour. I probably might. Yeah. But what I was thinking about it was that it's like, I don't know if it's gaslighting so much. I think that is the honest truth that this man is saying. Is like, this is all I want, but the thing is, he exists within a system that prioritizes him over the object of his affection. And so when he's rejected by that object of affection, which is a person, by the way, he gets violent. He's, like all these, like it uses its power to manipulate or terrify to try and get what it wants. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like men are the monster thing, But like that's whole, like as an archetype.
We are the monster.
Well, I don't know.
Samangs.
I think all of that again, I think the birthing scene was the thesis. It almost feels like a working backwards type of situation where it's like, this is what I want to say and I want to have this, because it feels like a culmination, because that's a kind of in different aspects what all of the men, especially involved in the birthing sequence, want. The
Yeah.
vicar wants her love from like a physical sense. The boy wants her attention. Hey, come
As a
play
mother.
with me. Yeah, like an interaction. Jeffrey kind of wants her as like a I don't know, it's like an opposite almost. He wants her to fill the role that like he wants to protect her. He wants
Yeah.
to, so like each one of them want this certain aspect of the feminine character or what's put upon that. So I just saw that as, what do you want? It's just a culmination of all those things that all these people are chasing her down for, trying to take from her or force upon her. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was my interpretation of that.
No, I think that's more or less what I was getting at, is like, this is, I mean, I think you're right that they work together. They're intended to, but the idea of him being like, I love you, I don't think that's meant to be a lie. I think that's meant to be what this guy and every guy that came out of every other guy wanted from the feminine archetype, and she is the representation of that. So
Yeah.
she's asked for everything, but she has very little power to prevent it being taken by force, which is what was happening throughout the course of the film. So yeah, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, and there's, the thing is too, they open it up with kind of a Garden of Eden type of situation, which, a lot of the religious aspects come from. She eats the apple. Jeffrey tells her like, no, that's forbidden. You're not supposed to do that. And then of course, like a lot of blame is cast upon her from the vicar, did you cause your husband to commit suicide? And so often she's blamed, or even, with the
Ignored.
cops interaction, I don't know if he's following you at all. It's just that's kind of the way you could look at it in religion, as far as like the way Eve is portrayed, like, oh, it's her fault. She took the apple. She did these. So
well,
that is
yeah.
Yeah.
That is part and parcel to the religious conversation too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
the basis of so much misogyny within certain sects of the church for eons.
Yeah.
Eons isn't right, but
especially when it started with that. But like, she was able to enjoy like the nature on her own, like you were saying. And it wasn't, I always attributed the naked man as Adam. He's in the wild, he's naked. And so when he's like chasing her down, like this chaos that's all of a sudden created in an otherwise peaceful kind of nature type of utopia, and that's where all the friction comes from. He chases her down, the tunnel. He ends up in her yard. So I don't know.
Well, I think the naked man, I mean, it's definitely open for interpretation, but whenever he starts like cutting his face and like putting like leaves and shit into the cuts, he's sort of like transforming into the green man, the little like
true,
stone carving we see. But I mean, he does like stand naked in the garden. So I mean, it's he's like several things, I guess. Maybe
that's
just
the thing,
like
is
the birth of religion. I don't know.
No, yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, I mean, it's, to me, it was pretty clear that Christianity in this is an avatar for the entirety of like, this sort of prolonged, canonization of misogynistic thinking amongst people strong enough to maintain that canonization through force, which would largely be men over the course of history. So, like, just like Christianity was, adopted pagan ideas and symbols and events. It's just showing that it's even more ancient than the ancient things we know, I think, and just showing, like, I don't know. I think that like the Christianity thing is not, it's part of it, but it is not the entire length. It's just the most accessible form of like, okay, this is the most common religion in the world, and it's obviously got some of these problems over the years, but even that is not original. It's been cyclical even longer than that.
Yeah. I guess I was having a hard time justifying some of the symbols or something, because for instance, like I took a shit ton of notes. So I was saying, like, the red house, I was like, is this hell? Because essentially the last sequence, it goes on for a long time, takes a lot of in the house. It takes place in the house, pretty much.
Mhm.
And it's this like bright red color, but also there's something going on. I guess I can't justify the idea of the green man. He blows dandelions on her, but we've seen the dandelions before. Like, the opening of this film focuses on the dandelions, and toward the end, he like blows dandelions onto her, and then he transforms himself into the green man. I'm like, I'm having a hard time following the logic, or like the mixing of imageries and stuff. Like, I'm not exactly sure why he's doing that.
I have a little bit of research that I did on like what the Green Man is, and I can share that now instead of in trivia. I think it might add to the conversation overall.
Okay.
So we see the sort of like stone carving. I think it's a basin in the church.
Yeah.
And on the front of it, it looks like that's the face of the Green Man, and on the back is the female that's like holding open her genitalia, and that is called a Sheila na gig, is what that's called.
Okay.
So from what I found out about the Green Man, it's these are both just like old pieces of pagan iconography. The Green Man is like faced with leaves coming out of it. It's believed to symbolize the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Typically heralds spring after a long winter, and represents the renewal of like lush vegetation. As far as the Sheila gig, it often shows like women exposing their genitals, and both of these were used frequently in churches. The symbol is said to represent a pagan war goddess identified as the hag-like Cailleach of the Irish and Scottish mythology. It's also suggested that the figures may symbolize the crone or an earth goddess from Celtic mythology. That Cailleach apparently is a divine hag and ancestor associated with the creation of the landscape and with the weather, especially storms and winter. And the crone goddess, or dark mother, is the last aspect of the triple goddesses. Together with the mother and the maiden, she represents part of the circle of life, specifically our destruction, decay, and death associated with winter and the color black. So it also, it kind of like sounds like the Green Man and the Sheila gig in some ways are like polar opposites. Of course, some of this is sort of like contested information, but it sounds like they're two sides of the same coin in a way.
Well, it sounds like to me, like based on that, which, as you say, it's contested or whatever, but I mean, what I garnered from it, or what I like, sort of the assumption I was making as I was watching the movie, because I couldn't obviously look it up in the moment, was that, okay, looking at that pedestal, the Green Man is out front. He's on the front of the pedestal where the preacher preaches. On the back of the pedestal where the preacher stands and nobody looks is this feminine figure who's spreading their vagina open. And it's, to me, it was like, if you're looking at the Christian faith as taking on pagan iconography and that being indicative of misogyny that existed beforehand, that is pretty indicative of that. Or it's like you're hiding the shame, but there's also this thing that goes on. And also, if the iconography that you just mentioned, like if that's true, that it's like one is rebirth and that's the Green Man, and destruction is the feminine figure of whatever that character was called, then I mean, that is yet another case of, Eve took the apple. It's Eve's fault that sin exists, and it's Eve's fault for all of the sins of the world. It's just another version of that was, adopted into Christianity. It sounds like to me. So I think it's yet another way of showing, like how far back, this sort of thinking has gone, and how it's in like almost biologically, or not biologically, but sort of like culturally and biologically ingrained that we've bred that sort of thinking in almost every corner of the world.
It's also a weird look at a very particular sect of Christianity and the clash of culture in a way, because we're in this, or it's supposed to take place in this remote English village, but even Bob mentioning the idea of the the kind of Celtic Irish characters, but they're often found in churches. So that's such a thing where you'd be like, this is such pagan, ideas, pagan characters, symbols, and yet they in England, Ireland, Scotland, stuff like that, they are prominent in churches. So it's this idea of this local culture kind of fusing into it, and people just explaining it away because that's their lives, or just accepting it, is like where other sects of Christianity would recognize it as like paganism or something like that. It's a weird mix, and maybe that's why I'm having a hard time justifying it in the film, because to me it seems so unnatural, but that's not a part of my culture, that's not a part of where I live. That's just kind of accepted. So,
well, I mean, just historically speaking, like those things being adopted and sort of like wink wink nod nod, no, these are Christian things, like that's part of Christian history, like, and as Americans, a lot of our Christian thinking largely comes from European thinking. So I think that, like, while we're not getting those ancient statues and stuff to the same degree, I think it's all built on the same stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it's largely is sects, notwithstanding, but like, I don't know. I think it is part of it, but we don't recognize it because we're not meant to. The only reason that was adopted into Christianity in the first place was to get people to adopt Christianity as a state religion, as commanded by Constantine or whoever else. So, I mean, I don't know. That's why we have, we have holidays on the equinox that are religious, supposedly. They were religious before Christianity came along, but Christianity said, no, this is now our religion. And that's just like the progression of history. And part of that progression involves the domineering male over female dynamic. I don't know. So, I mean, to me, that's all I was thinking about. Anyway, like, all that aside, though, I just don't want to like totally focus on the fact
some
like
more
the inscrutable
jokes
parts of it.
This is too serious.
Well, no. Yes, but
this is a real conversation. Can't have that.
We don't want people taking us seriously.
No.
I had to stop her from screaming.
That won't do it all.
Yeah. Anyway, but I do want to keep talking about like the visuals and the audio. Let's talk about that shit. The audio, the vocalization that she does, that they like use throughout this movie, fucking awesome. That shit is great. And like, I would say that like both are on par with any of Alex Garland's other work. It really isn't markedly worse than any other Alex Garland movie, except in the story department.
Yeah, that's what's kind of difficult, is because, like Rob was saying earlier, the pieces are really good, but it feels like the overall product is like raw, like it wasn't really developed fully. But before we go ahead and talk a lot of good things, because I think there is a lot of good things to mention in the overall cinematography, how things look, design and stuff, that kid looks terrible. And that's why I really think this like whole story kind of was based on that thesis of the birthing scene of like, no, we have to have a kid to show like, it's systematic and it keeps going, because the kid looks so bad, like in a movie, and from a director who I know can make amazing visuals and is usually very interesting like style visually and stuff. It like looks so stupid and terrible. It's like, it was blowing me away.
That's got to be why they had him wear a mask for like some of it, right? It's like,
that's the thing.
A little bit.
Yeah,
that's my question though, is why not keep that mask on until the birthing scene if that's important? Like, have him like come out with a mask on and then rip it off, and you're like, oh shit, it's him anyway. You can have him use the same voice, so we have an inkling or an assumption, but only have it really come out that, like, I don't know. I think that's a misstep totally, because you're right. It's just like, it just doesn't look good. And like, compared to some of the other stuff in this movie, it looks real good, real bad. Like even the birthing stuff, as ridiculous as it is, like, I wouldn't say it looks real, but it looks visceral.
No.
It gives
it gives you
the feeling that it's going
for. It's alarming, to say the least. Oh my God.
I thought Bob was gonna
God.
give half star for the mangina.
Oh my
Half
God.
star for the hog. I mean,
There's no hog. Well,
Yeah,
actually,
dude,
there is
there's
a hog.
There's a
lot of
hog,
hog.
buddy.
Are you kidding me?
I meant in the birth scene, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of
Dude,
hog.
we get a bird's
nothing
eye
I'd ever
view.
smelled before in my life.
Yeah,
Rory Kinnear's hog is the main star in this movie. God
that's
damn.
true. Yeah.
I gotta give my hat. I gotta
Another
take my hat
hog
off too.
jog.
Dude,
Yeah.
I know. Dude, that was a hog sprint. That dude was fucking running his ass off. Rory Kinnear played like fucking 10 characters in this or something. Like, that is incredible. And he did a fantastic job making each character
Mhm.
feel like a different person.
Mhm.
Apparently, I was reading an interview with him. He went so far as to write a full biography for each one of his characters, so he
Oh
would have
my
something
God.
to pull from.
I like
That's
that.
that's dedication, man. Like, I mean, I don't know. I love that actor. I think he's fantastic, and he does a great job in this movie.
What
for
else
sure.
is he in? The only thing I could pinpoint him in was the first episode of Black Mirror.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's also
Which he was
pla-
also pretty ballsy, so to
he
speak.
plays the creature in Penny Dreadful.
Yeah,
does
he
he?
does.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
He
good
kills it.
call. Yeah, he does. Damn, I
He's
want
in
Uh,
a couple of
Dreadful
007
again.
movies.
I
It's
think
good as
this
shit, man.
spooky season I gotta dip back in there. Yeah, I now to say he did, especially so my favorite was Jeffrey because there was some real interaction there, and I thought some real
Mhm.
nuance in playing that character. However,
Yeah.
though, to be fair, the Adam character is silent. Now he does a good job with being menacing and but he's silent. The kid looks terrible, so it's hard to take
Well,
anything
The
like that seriously.
I think the hog is really doing the talking. for me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I'll let the hog do the talking. But then so he does a good job then again with the priest. But
Yeah, dude.
but
Yeah.
the police officer has very limited action. There's those silent guys from the pub. Again, they're silent. They don't really say
Yeah.
anything. They're menacing, but
The bartender gets a few lines in there.
that's true. Yeah, the bartender.
I don't know, man. I think I don't think it should be limited to like who has line. The thing is, like, the point of all that is very strong. Like, you having
Mm.
a silent character have the same face of the person who's menacing this woman is a good and smart way of putting that across. Like,
It is.
I-
It is.
and like it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a huge showcase for Rory in every character, but I think
Yeah.
that even playing 3 or 4 to the amount that he did is more than enough for me to be like, okay, this guy, he's really pulling the nutty professor on us here.
Sure. Or even just his performance as Jeffrey
That's-
is great.
that's
Like I don't
cool.
want to diminish that. I was just kind of like
I
putting it in
do-
Jeffrey
perspective.
alone is an incredible character.
Yeah.
I do wonder why all of the men are Rory Kinnear, with the exception of her husband. I wonder why that was a choice that was made. I mean, you could just have all the characters be played by different people if you're gonna do that. I feel like I don't know.
I
If it
think
really
that
made,
if they made him also Rory Kinnear, or made all of the men the literal same guy, including her husband, I think it would obfuscate what he's trying to get at about men in general and make it more about lost love or like
Guilt.
a personal thing. Guilt.
That's what
maybe.
I thought. Yeah, I thought
that's
it
a good
would
point, yeah.
come across as more of like the guilt, or she sees him in everyone. It becomes more about the experience of
Their
the
relationship.
suicide, yeah, and the relationship, not necessarily the idea of men. I agree completely.
Now, I will say this because it is, I think, needs to be said. Maybe the worst thing about this movie is the name. This movie tells you with no uncertain terms exactly what it's about. That's part of why, like, as much as you kind of have to figure things out, it also seems like it's given to you on a platter, because it is. Like,
Yeah.
if they didn't,
Yeah.
if they had called this something else and allowed you to naturally come to the conclusion that this is about, like the cyclical nature of misogyny and things like that or whatever, I think that it would have been a more engaging movie. I think it would have been easier, or not easier, excuse me. It would have been more rewarding to find that out for yourself rather than for it to be right on the fucking surface, literally before you sit down in the theater. Like, you have to say the word men to get in. The
Mhm.
password is the point, and it's like, I don't know, maybe that works. If you're gonna have a heady movie like this that requires the grunt work or whatever, give us the full effect. Why pull the punch by making it the title a dead giveaway?
Yeah.
And to that point, though, like I still ask the question, like why all the characters are played by this one guy? Like you could get the same point across by just casting different people. Like I don't understand why that choice was really made.
Well,
I think that choice works because it's eerie. I think really that it's eerie and it's not unacknowledged, and that makes it even more eerie. Is like even she, as a character, does not realize that. And I think that makes it feel dreamy and strange.
Like all the men are the same, with the exception of her husband, though. It just sort of like goes against the point of the movie, it feels, unless I'm missing something here.
I guess I could see your point.
Yeah, I can too. But also, I think there's a couple different things at play here. I do think the not mixing up the point of the guilt and I see somebody who I've lost in everyone other's faces, like that's a very prominent thing that I think is easy to avoid by not including the same actor. So I think that probably was the most driving factor, but also there's still a thing like with the dreamlike state, and even the guy cutting his hand in half and it having some kind of reaction, then these things birthing each other. Because I was like, again, with the red house, I was like, is she in hell? And at one point I asked the question in my notes, did she kill herself? Because at one point they do this scene where it looks like she's screaming underwater. And I was like, is she in some sort of like purgatory where she is? I was like, did she kill herself over this grief? And I asked the question. I don't think there's enough evidence to necessarily say yes or no, but it is something that occurred to me where I was like, is this idea of the Garden of Eden? You're trying to get into paradise, you're trying to move on, but there's this lingering guilt that you have to deal with. Because another prominent thing when the discussion, we haven't really talked about this, but the scenes between the woman and her husband when they're arguing and talking about the divorce, I thought were done really well. Bob also mentioned, though, I think in a private discussion, there was like this dreamlike state going on, even in that scene, where and you could say like, oh, she's remembering it, or oh, it's showing the past or whatever. But he even dropped some lines like, we made promises in a church, this religious idea tied to that, and despite the fact that he's walking around like beating her and shit, and I think that's important though too. So I'm like, is she stuck in this kind of purgatory and this type of like she killed herself, she's wrestling with the grief in the afterlife, or I don't know. I think
that's a pretty valid way of looking at it, but at the same time, I think that I guess that's one of the more ambiguous things, and that's what I like, is that you could point at that and say, sure, this is the last gasps of a life, that was traumatized at the end. But I don't know. I think honestly, I take the whole movie as just sort of an allegorical dream, the entire thing, top to bottom. And that's kind of like, that's the approach you have to take with movies like by David Lynch and things like that. So I've kind of learned how to do that. The thing is, like, unlike a David Lynch movie or some of these other movies that kind of take the same tack, this starts on a pretty even keel, and all of that dream logic that you're talking about that's happening in the like memory of the past or whatever, it just seems like normal artistic license that directors take when it comes to like viewing the past. So just so you can visually identify what's the past and what's the present. So I don't know, like, to me, that's like the idea of it being purgatory and hell and things like that. I think those are means to an end symbolically. I don't think that like adds a whole lot to the point of this guy. Like, yeah, like you said, he talked about promises made in a church or whatever, and that is the point. It's like, all these things are used as devices to relegate women to a secondary status. And there are all these excuses made. Oh, Eve took the apple. Oh, the woman is the death bringer, where the man is the life bringer, despite that being sort of like reversed so often over the years. I don't know.
I think the point of the movie, the metaphor that the movie is trying to sort of like land is first and foremost like what you're supposed to take away from this, and like the actual story at hand is very secondary and almost it just takes a very large backseat and almost doesn't really matter. I did find a quote from Alex Garland that could help explain like how he intends the movie to be viewed. He doesn't like state this factually, but I thought this was interesting. He said, "You could watch this movie and say it's just a ghost story. This young woman is bereaved and goes to the countryside and gets essentially haunted by either the memory or the manifestation of her dead husband's sadness and anger. It should just be able to function like that if that's what people wanted." I think that's kind of a cool idea, a cool way to watch this movie. But it's open for interpretation.
She even asked it, and I thought this was kind of important too. Like, what are you? And again, the idea of the arm splits, and obviously these things birth each other. So, I mean, you could even take it of, and we see it some kind of transformation of the Green Man and the thing happening in the phone. So, if again, that's a good quote, because if you want to look at it in a like almost like a vivarium type of way of like, oh, some weird thing is just happening. It's like maybe some weird shit is happening, you know?
That's the thing. It's like you kind of taking the dream logic at face value. There's some value to that.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Like if you have to meet it at least halfway to enjoy this movie at all, or any movie that does that. You have to be okay with things not making total sense and just being like experiencing them for what they are.
Yeah.
And not all, we're pretty hardwired as a culture not to do that. You know, we need an explanation for everything because we crave it. And that's not wrong, but that's also just not the only way to do things. So
I need the police officer to break the fourth wall, look at me in the eyes and say, "Oh no, he's turning us into the monsters." So I can get it.
Yeah. See, when people talk about movies like this being like too obvious, I'm like, you bitch, you don't know what obvious is. Come on.
Please.
Evil. This isn't Halloween Kills, okay? Or wait, no, Halloween was that second one.
Kills. You got
it. It is okay.
the second one. What?
Yeah, that's the one.
The second,
You know
the bullshit. The bullshit. Now we
there...
are the monsters.
Do you get the point of this movie?
Has anyone explained to you what the movie's about?
The
Let me
boogeyman
introduce you
is
to
at
the
large.
old poopy pants sheriff from 80 years ago.
I was waiting on Harper to start yelling, "Bangs died tonight," but she never did. Anything else you guys want to hit on before we rate this?
One hit on
I mean,
you,
I
baby?
took a shit ton of notes, but I'll go through it in my
You wrap up there.
Yeah, my wrap up.
All right. Well, let's go.
I do want to ask one question.
Okay.
I was just going through my notes, and she goes through the house with Jeffrey, and they talk about the piano, and she's like, "Oh, do you play?" And she's like, "No." And okay. And then later she's like jamming out on the piano, and I was like, "Why did I lie to him?"
I think it's like she's maybe doesn't want to be asked to entertain this man. And it's kind of what I think is like you kind of conceal
a song or something.
I was like, you should try it, like shit like that. I feel like
could be. Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I don't know how strong that logic is, but to me, that's what I thought. I was like, she must have just wanted that dude out of there, and that kind of plays into the idea of the movie, where it's like she wants to be left alone. She doesn't want to struggle against another man right now in the wake of her husband's suicide.
Yeah,
makes sense. Ready? We're gonna rate it. We're gonna do it now.
Yeah, ready?
Let's go ahead and rate.
You ready?
Okay, out of 5. Out of 5, Juice. Why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Mangs?
All right, I'm just trying to go through some of these notes because they are kind of enlightening now that I've had some time to sit on it. Like for instance, I think there's some subtlety to this of the naked dude strolling through the yard, okay? And technically, he's not doing anything threatening. And that's kind of the point of like not really the point of the cop, but the idea of like, somebody shouldn't be in my yard. So her point, yeah, a naked man should not be in your yard. Yeah, absolutely. But then the subtlety of, well, he's not actually doing anything.
Mhm.
You know, at the time, he's not really like, he's strolling. And so I kind of like that subtlety, you know, because it goes to that kind of real life frustration of, I mean, I don't know if this man's really threatening you. It's like, dude, what? That's not the fucking point even. Like, what? Somebody have to fucking try to write me before you're actually arrested. So I kind of like those little subtle moments. Dude, the vicar putting on the old chapstick, they did a great job of making that dude disgusting in little kind of ways.
Yeah.
The way he touched the fucking bench after she stood up.
Oh yeah. there was
Jesus
some
Christ.
good subtlety there.
That's what he
I'll be
said.
stroking.
Y'all were mentioning the music earlier. The music during the storm scene was really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, the type of music also too had that religious kind of bent to it. And I liked how the kind of song that she was singing in the tunnel worked its way back again in like a full-fledged kind of feel, but it was haunting type of music. It was a good blend. It was very interesting. Yeah, the scenes between the husband and the wife were tense. Like there was some real good acting going on there. Like I felt the tension and the acting when they were just showing the house. I was like, man, the tension is like on point here. But I did put that this movie is too self-indulgent, and I still believe that. I made the note, and I was like, this is like I see the messages here, and even I'm trying to really help out and point out the subtleness of some of the choices here, which I think are smart, but ultimately I still do think that it's too self-indulgent. And I still believe that it really started with this thesis of the birthing scene and kind of worked backwards. We have to have this kid with this guy's face on it. You know, all of these pieces have to fit to get this point across. And I think that hurt the overall film, which is weird because usually Alex Garland films are so tight. And it's tough because I still see a lot of his elements in here. The cinematography is really good. It's beautiful. The actors do a great job. There's some real tension. The dude falling on the fence. There's some real visceral scenes that really have a good effect on just like your fucking psyche and like falling into this film. But it's too wild and underbaked. I too wish that something else would have been said, or not necessarily even said, just developed better. I think maybe having that guy play so many characters was maybe a little hurtful because maybe it was spread a little too thin. Again, the kid looks terrible. And so, I mean, I think on the measurables, I could give it up to like a 3.5 for all the pieces kind of being developed well, but I'm gonna stick it to him, and I'm gonna give a negative half star for the hog jog. Again, I'm gonna stay consistent, and so I'm gonna end this one at a 3 out of 5 stars for Mangs.
All right, a 3.
No!
A 3 from old Juicy. The hog strikes again.
Yep. It's bringing these movies down. Robert, out of 5, where are you gonna rank Mangs?
So, I think this movie is first and foremost trying to make a point. That seems to be what it's mainly concerned about. And the plot of this story definitely is not that impressive. And I just don't think like the filmmaker was trying to weave a very amazing, interesting story. I think he was trying to get his point across. I think that was like the reason this movie was made. And at the end of the day, like the point is not very impressive or groundbreaking or overwhelming in really any way. It feels like stuff that, you know, most people probably are very familiar with the exception of the Green Man and the Sheila gig. Like that was definitely above my pay grade. And, you know, I'm glad that I researched that and kind of learned what that was, but everything else seemed at the end of the day pretty surface level. And the birthing sequence is effective and jarring, but it doesn't take a whole lot of thought to kind of get at what that means necessarily. Men are a fucking problem, and man-made institutions just sort of perpetuate men being a fucking problem, and it's always been that way. It's just kind of like that's what the movie's saying. It just sort of makes the movie kind of land with a just a bit of a thud. It just doesn't really hit home for me. The performances are very solid. The movie is crafted very well. Most of the CGI is good. The music in this is extremely haunting. It's got a lot of these weird ethereal sort of vocals happening. The scares are effective. There's a lot of creepiness. The horror beats land. But I just think the main reason the movie this was made was to get that point across, and it's not very effective at the end of the day. Something that when you were talking just reminded me, the boyfriend is definitely played, I keep saying the boyfriend, the husband, the ex-husband, played by a different actor, obviously, and all the other men are played by Roy Kinnear. And they do have the same wounds, though. When he falls on the fence, his hand is sort of split in half, like the other guys are. So maybe at the end of the day, they are, getting the point across that yes, all men, even the husband, they're all the same at the end of the day. It just was confusing to me why they had the same actor do every character but the husband. I don't know. I'm going to come in with a 2.5 on this one, but I will reluctantly give it a half star for the hog.
For the mangina. I thought that's what you were calling it.
It's all the same in the dark.
For just, I don't know about that.
Damn.
There's a slight difference, I think. It's I got an offset juice here, so I'll come. It'll round me up to a 3 overall for Mangs. Randy, how do you feel?
Bob's only code is to go against
undo your code.
Mortal enemies.
Sometimes you got to have your yin and your yang together, buddy. Yeah, so I guess throughout that conversation, I got the impression that you guys were less cool on it than I thought. My feeling towards this movie, some of the points made were fine, but Rob, you said this movie is made for the point and not the plot, and I think that's not incorrect. I think that's correct, and there are a lot of movies that do that suffer horribly for it. The thing that immediately came to my mind was some of these terrible, evangelical Christian movies that are out there that are more or less a sermon that uses straw men to attack. And that's I see that that's clearly makes for a worse movie in those cases. But because this movie is so allegorical and it's pretty clear up front that that's the case, after only the first act, you're pretty sure that you see the same face over and over again and nobody's acknowledging it. Obviously we're in dream state here. So to me, it doesn't really ding as badly for that. And as far as the point not being groundbreaking, I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. We've seen this covered in other movies, certainly in culture, local, it's being locally, recently. It's been talked about quite a bit, but the thing is, it's still contentious. And to me, I think there's still value in pointing out what is basically an abject reality still, even if it's something that we already know. So I don't totally ding him for not pointing out, I don't know, I don't know what more I wanted from it. It's not like this filmmaker is going to offer solutions. It's not his job to do that. So I don't know exactly what more I want besides from him, but having somebody, having people out there consistently, pointing this out is, I think, that is the hope that you were looking for with that last scene, is us being able to talk about this and reckon with it. If we don't talk about it at all, it gets forgotten and then we're right back where we started. Do you know what I mean? So for that, I don't really ding it. I think that this is an important enough topic to where, and one that's so pervasive and so deeply ingrained that, you need to talk about it. It needs to be talked about, and I value that they do. Let's see. As far as the visuals, the audio, the acting, I was on board for all of it. I think it was all good. I loved watching this in a theater. That's why I was hemming and hawing about whether or not to see it in the theater or whatever. Because it really is beautiful to watch in the theater and really like striking to me. But you do kind of walk away feeling half empty, like it didn't quite fulfill, like the sum of its parts are a little bit lesser than it's lesser than the sum of its parts is what I'm trying to say. So like there is definitely that feeling, but I still think it's plenty valuable. I think that we can dissect it a few more ways than I gave it credit for going into this conversation. I don't have a negative feeling about the birthing scene being the centerpiece of things. I think that's that is putting the fine point on the blade, and I think it kind of it didn't have to do that, but I'm totally fine with them doing that, and I think it was an impactful scene and all the more reason for them to do it. So all that said, I like this movie. I don't like it as much as I thought that I would, and I was doing some mental gymnastics walking out of the theater as to why that was. I was like, why doesn't this feel as good? Why doesn't this feel like as strong as I felt walking out of Ex Machina or watching Devs or any of these other films that Alex Garland has put his fingerprints all over? And I have a hard time coming up with an answer, but it just doesn't feel like fully fulfilled. I want there to be a little bit more. If you're going to be pointing things out that need to be pointed out, I think that you could do a little bit more. But as an experience, I think it's a pretty great experience. I just don't know that I want to live that experience again in pursuit of extra, tidbits that I don't know are there. So all that said, I'm going with a 3.5.
All right, Randu.
3.5 from Randu is
How
going
do
to
you
put
feel
our aggregate.
about the hog jog, Randu?
He loves it.
I always feel good about a hog jog. Let it fly, boys. Let it fly.
Oh, fly, boys. That's going to put our aggregate at a 3.2. Let's go ahead and jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment, see what the critics and users think about Mangs.
Certified to death.
All right, gents, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment. In this segment, I'm going to have these two gents guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive scores are for Men in both the users and critics category. We're going to start, as we always do, with the critic score. There are 213 critic scores in this film, so keep that in mind as you go. We'll start with Juice today. What do you think that the aggregate score of positives are for this film?
I think Alex
reviewers.
Garland has built up, that's quite a bit of reviews from critics. So I think Alex Garland has built up enough good faith, and there's enough good visual aspects. And from a critic standpoint, just the overall topic, I think is probably going to pay in his favor. But I think everybody's going to cap this in a certain way. Like, I don't think it's going to go super high, but I think it's going to end up generally positive. I think I'll play it safe and go with a 69 for Mangs.
69, dudes!
Yes,
Saw you
sir.
coming.
You were ready.
I was ready. Bob, how are you going to answer that 69?
I feel like the critics are going to be warmer than that. I'm going to go with a 75, please.
75. All right. Well guessed, gentlemen. You were hovering around the right answer, but Juice, you're going to take it. You were one off at 70.
Whoa!
70% positive.
Shit.
Oh, shit.
I almost said 70, but I didn't want to be like cheap and just do the $1. So I was like, oh, I'll go a little higher.
Got that
Fucked up.
ring-a-ding, Bob.
Well, that you know what they say you know what they call that, right, Bob?
No.
There you go.
Whoa, Bob, your bumps are being used against you.
I see it every day. Every day.
I see it every day. All right. Let's go over to the audience score. There are 250 plus verified ratings for this film. We'll start with Bob this time. Bob, where do you think the audience is going to land on this one?
I'm going to take a timeout. I got to restart the program.
Where did it stop?
Just let it roll.
It didn't stop. I just started having a delay, and I can't do it.
I'll be right back then, since we're going to pause.
I had to restart the program, so I'm just taking the opportunity to get some more water.
All right. You good now, Bob?
Check.
Can y'all hear me?
Check, motherfucker.
Hello?
Check.
What? Sorry, I'm just distracted.
Oh, okay. You can't hear me, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was reading something. Okay. Oh. That doesn't look promising.
Check.
Chop.
Uh-oh.
Check.
Bob?
Oh my God. I might get Jacko on Blu-ray
Jacko on
just so I can hear,
Blu-ray?
just so I can get that fucking commentary.
Oh, the
Bob been squealing
commentary about what's
It says right on there, they've got the original commentary on there. It's like, yeah, somebody knows.
Yeah,
They know what they're selling.
That's funny. Did y'all take lots of videos at the Halloween party or not the
Oh, I need to
Halloween,
get
the
you
costume
some.
party?
We didn't get lots, just honestly because it was difficult
I'm just
to fucking film yourself and walk anywhere. Like,
Yeah,
I don't have
sure.
that capability. But we got a couple shots of us on Bourbon Street. We got a shot of us at the carousel bar, which is like rotating. So I figured you could do like fast motion for that. And a big
Cool.
nice thing. What else? We got some at the Halloween party. Not a ton, but 3 or 4 things. And then some photos. I don't know if those are helpful. Probably not. But
Cool.
yeah, we got a little something going.
Good.
If you had asked, like, if I would have been like stoked to just go around and like just walk through Bourbon Street and like watching other
Sure,
people or
yeah.
whatever, and that would have been great. But to have us in it was like such a different thing.
So.
I don't want it. I don't want any.
Oh,
not sell
you
me on
boys.
myself. All right. Well, Rob's doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and pee anyway.
Okay.
Check. Check. Check.
Damn. This is how the
Check.
sausage is made.
Isn't that very good
It-
sausage?
Can you keep talking?
Hello,
Talking,
check, Bob.
talking,
Can you
saying
hear
things,
me?
talking.
Hey, yo.
Saying some stuff and talking and
Oh,
saying
bear. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Ba,
Oh, yeah.
ba, ba.
Oh my god.
Oh,
my God.
Oh, my God.
Oh my god.
Oh, Bo Bear.
Check.
Oh my god.
Oh, God. Oh, God. That's why you never restart in the middle of recording.
I don't think this is a problem with the software.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, this is a new problem.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
That sounds exciting. Oh, my God.
Bob would be proud of me. I just ordered a Blu-ray.
Randy, oh God.
Oh god.
I did buy that little comic this weekend or whatever from those local guys. And I think you like it, right? I wonder, they were almost out.
Yeah.
I wonder if I could get you one. I should go back.
Check.
I'll
Okay,
send
well,
it to you. That's pretty cool art style.
Nice.
check.
I had to get that. Mikey told me about this steelbook of Everything Everywhere All at
Sure,
Once, and I love
sure.
that movie so much. I'm like, yeah,
It's
this
already
cover's
out?
Cool. Not yet, it's a pre-order, but it's coming
Oh,
out like
okay.
in the
It's like,
next
God
few
damn.
days or something.
Was Mikey out there wheeling and dealing, Randy? Did you see the chaos?
No, he was out there gambling his asshole off, dude. He won a fuck ton of money.
Good. On what? What was
He
he
was-
playing?
Well, he jumped around. He was at the Harris Casino, so he did some sports
Mainly-
betting. He did
Yeah, poker
Blackjack.
and craps.
Damn.
craps and
nice.
poker. Yeah. What did he make
okay.
out? Like over $3,000, right?
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Something like that.
Damn.
None of us should have paid for anything all weekend, honestly. except for old Mike.
Good
All
for
right.
him.
I can limp along. I still have problems, but good enough to roll.
Okay.
Okay.
Did we finish
Where
Rotten
were we?
Tomatoes?
No.
Now I have to guess audience. That's where we're at.
Okay.
Did I already? Oh, okay. You're gonna guess
No.
first. I haven't guessed at all, right?
No, you have not.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Let
y'all
me know
ready?
when to roll. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
All right, Bob. So let's go to the audience score. There are 250.
No. You already asked that. I just have to guess. I thought you stopped recording the video. That's why I said go for it.
No.
Oh,
I just
no.
it's been rolling.
Okay. Then it's on me. All right. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. All right. Well, I think the audience is going to be a little bit lower than the critics on this one. I think this is more of like a critical darling than like an audience, a crowd pleaser, if you will. So I'm going to go with a 65.
65. All right. Soju, where are you landing on this audience score?
I agree with Bob on that logic, but he only went down 5 points from where the critics rated it. I think it's going to be lower than that. I think it's going to be much lower than that. So I'll play it somewhat safe, but I'm going to drop it to 55.
55. Well, that was a good instinct. This is a 39% audience score.
Damn.
So
39%.
they don't like that artsy part.
They do not like seeing a mangina. I'll tell you that much. They do not
They
like seeing
Prudes.
mouth births.
They did not
And they
like
certainly
that
don't
hog
like-
jog.
There wasn't a single infinity stone in this movie. What are you guys thinking? Too high.
Oh, we're way past that, Randy.
God damn.
Well,
So here's
that's another hell yeet.
Sorta. Critics' consensus reads as follows. If its narrative and thematic reach sometimes exceeds its grasp, magnetic performances from a stellar cast help men make the most of its horror provocations. Sorry, I scrolled down before I finished reading.
All right.
That's
Yeah,
fair, I
yeah.
guess. Here's
Do they have
a
an
negative
audience
review.
write up or whatever they do?
Probably, but I'm not going to dig that deep. We got to keep things moving here. The film's weakness lies not in its depiction of misogyny as ubiquitous, but its failure to build thematically on the conceit. Well, that seems like pretty much
Yeah.
up the alley of what we've been saying.
Yeah, that's
Agreed.
fair.
Yeah. So,
Okay, well,
way to go, you,
way to
Ryan
go.
Gilby.
Mm-hmm.
My boy Gilby.
Boy,
Killed it.
Gilb.
Can you imagine though
It's actually Gilbert.
the much more potent outrage that would have been present had a woman directed this film?
Oh my God, dude. The thing is, like, no movie that's not a Marvel or Star Wars movie will elicit the kind of outrage you're talking about anymore. It's not
well, I
possible.
don't know if that's not. Maybe, yeah.
It would have made more sense if a woman directed it. Like, it would have been like easier to swallow the like bluntness of the message, I think, if a female delivered it, because
Really?
she would have lived and experienced some of these things, whereas I'm assuming Alex
Right.
Garland probably had not.
I felt like
about
the
that, but I know
incel
that-
crowd would have been like rearing to go.
Oh, I'm just speaking for me. I don't.
I know,
I
do
not
know.
represent the incels.
Well,
That's Randy's job.
well, I know
I
that to be true.
represent the incels.
He said, "I do."
That's- That's Randy's
I
job.
was just
What the
okay.
fuck?
You're just saying for
You
yourself.
don't know what
and-
death is.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think it. If it was delivered the exact same way, but I knew a woman director, I don't think it would have changed my thought at all.
Not for
but,
me, no.
yeah.
Like I think that there would be a little bit more outrage because people hate
Yeah.
women. But
I just think
you know.
it would have made it would have made more sense. Like, I don't know that I
Okay.
really would have liked it any better, but I could
Yeah.
understand it coming from a woman better than Alex Garland, I guess.
I
is
know
all
that
I'm
I've
saying.
seen a lot of female viewers criticize this movie equally. So
Mm.
to
Yeah.
whatever that means,
Yeah.
that is the case. I've seen a lot of people saying this is very surface level, Alex.
Yeah. Well, even
it's
that
like-
review that you just read off was pretty on point for
Yeah.
So that's good to hear. That's good.
There we go. So that's our Rotten Tomatoes segment. What's next, Bob?
What's next?
The little bit of trivia I had, I already read as we were doing our discussion.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and talk the most obvious cooter of the week ever.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Well, Bob, Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, but we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, how do we feel about Harper being our cooter of the week? Nah, just kidding.
Hands down.
Harper?
It's just fucking around.
She's
fuck?
the worst.
I was just fucking around because I was like the most obvious cooter.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Mangs. It's the clear answer is Mangs.
You think
I'm
it's
a
all
Mangs.
Mangs? Is the answer all Mangs? 'Cause
Rob
I
is
really
looking
want to
to-
highlight one particular Mang.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we could go with the husband.
Well, okay, certainly, yes. I was
Well,
going
also
for
the
the
vicar.
preacher.
Yeah.
The vicar.
We got some
He's the
choices
one I
here.
immediately thought of. If we roll him up into one man ball, then I think that's fair. But I do want to highlight him, and I think you're right to highlight the husband as well.
Yeah, let's
'Cause
start with
they
the
are just
vicar.
extra shitty. Okay, cool. Let's go to the vicar and say sexual deviant.
Check.
Totally. This dude feels the warmth of a woman's seat for sexual pleasure. That
Maybe he's
is-
just cold, Randy.
yeah, it was
Yeah, that
definitely
is weird.
comes from cold. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's on the level of like that's some creepy shit, like smelling a woman's shoes or.
I would
like-
also add that
says-
to patheticness.
Well, he
Mm.
For the
says
record.
something along the lines of like, "I've decided you're an expert at all things carnal" or some shit like
Yeah,
that. It's like,
Yeah,
I've
what the
decided.
fuck? I've decided that I think you're an expert.
Also, I mentioned it before that chapstick, it just was like, ugh. It's something. It was so simple, but it was such a good way to just show how just creepy this fucking
And
dude is. Ugh.
so right. The attempted rape also goes towards the sexual deviance.
That
Yeah.
goes without saying.
So got it.
Sexual deviance, patheticness on all fronts there too.
Yeah. Yeah. The seat
Manipulation to
thing
the
is super pathetic. Yeah.
yeah. The manipulation aspect I think is there too. Like I don't know if I feel like the guy believes what he's saying, so it's kind of not a manipulation, but it's gaslighting whether or not he believes it.
It's kind of manipulation if you think of it leads her to his desired destination. You know, he wants her to feel bad about herself. He wants her to, seek comfort in him. Like he wants her to feel downtrodden, and so in that way it is kind of manipulative, whether he believes it or not. He's trying to lead her where he wants her to be.
Whether he's tricking himself in the process or not, he is telling this woman something that is just not true. She has no control over what this dude does with his body. He threw himself out a fucking window,
or
That is
just
not
slip.
her fault. Either way,
Either way.
in no
Not her
case
fault.
is she
Yeah.
responsible for just wanting to live her life without this guy. She has every
Yeah.
right to do that, and of course that's obvious.
Yeah.
and
So
the attire he gets, he's dressed like he's in the fucking Matrix or something.
Yeah, what's his deal, man?
He's
What's
all
he
Neo'd out.
wearing? What's that little collar? Fucking weirdo.
What a loser.
Evil.
manipulation. Does he have smug arrogance?
I think so a little bit. I think
He
it's
teeters.
like
Yeah.
I think it comes from the religious aspect though. Like he again, like sort of like there's a smugness in being like, well, I'm the guy with the answers, and here they are, and
Yeah.
it's the worst possible answer, and it's semi-designed to trick you into loving me.
I guess if we were going with all Mangs, we could say that he's definitely the sexual aspect, or I think the biggest sexual aspect.
Yeah.
And maybe the police officer is more the smug arrogance.
Or just I think he's the indifference personally. Like if anything, I don't think he hits a point like quite as hard. He's not in it as much also,
Yeah.
but as part of the overall Mang system, I think his role is the guy that represents indifference to
yeah.
what this woman has to say, basically.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think the Green Mang is pretty smug because he's just hanging hog the whole movie.
He's just
Man, he's
proud of what
proud.
he's got, Bob. That's
You
not
know,
arrogant.
Bob-
That's just
Pride's not on the list, Bob. Not ours anyway. He's got to
Where's-
deal with the big man later.
Where's his decency? Come on.
loud and proud. Let's talk about the husband.
Okay. Hit me.
Manipulation is
Absolute
his big one. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't divorce me or I will kill myself. I mean,
Damn.
That also deeply pathetic.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say
Have
it's
a
pathetic.
fucking
I
spine.
kind of like. I want to kind of subscribe. I like that they included the detail that maybe he just slipped trying to climb down the balcony. I don't know why that makes it somewhat better and entertaining and in a very dark, terrible way, but it does.
And I don't know. Like thematically, it only adds, I think. But yeah, it is kind of like funny. It's like, oh, like,
Oh, shit.
going over.
Well,
Going
also too, because at the beginning they do that slow-mo where they're looking at each other through the window, and it
Yeah.
completely changes the idea if you think like I'm doing this and I want you
Yeah.
to see me
Yeah.
kill myself, or like fuck.
It's still like that. It's still like meant, like not necessarily meant to inspire guilt, but even if it's an accident, it's like, look what you've done. Like,
Kind
it's
of,
still
yeah,
that.
but it's also just like your reaction would be like kind of internally different.
Yeah.
So I like to picture that. Kind of
It is
pathetic.
funnier. Kind of pathetic. Flashing out and hitting your wife. Pretty
Yeah.
fucking pathetic. Pretty fucking smug.
Yeah, smug arrogance. Yeah. Oh god, when he hits her, why does it? Oh, he hits her because he takes her phone. It's like,
Yeah.
what? You're scared of me? I'm like, yeah, bitch, you're about to punch me in the face.
Why are you scared of me? God!
I'll give you a reason to be scared of me.
Yeah.
It's like, god
And then he's like,
damn.
I'm sorry. It's just, fuck you. Fuck
You did this.
Mm.
Oh god. Ugh, pathetic.
I
Yeah.
had to stop her from screaming.
God. That is not appropriate here.
Wow.
So pleased with himself.
It's a perfect match. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at attire. He was wearing another man's skin.
He did crawl out of
Yep.
a mouth, so
Hey, it's
Usually-
me.
bloop.
The thrill
I
of
don't
wearing
know,
another
man.
man's skin.
At this point, I'm just ready to go with the Mang ball, the ball
Yeah.
of Mangs.
Yeah, they're all the same. I think
The
in
whole
in
point is that
context
they're
for
the
this
same.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Mang Ball.
Yeah, Mang ball.
Mangs
Booked.
are cooters.
All men have been booked. You heard it here, folks.
We're all
We-
cooters, and we're all going to cooter court.
All right.
Cooter Court. We got them. Gentlemen, it's been a while since we've talked about what we've been watching. Let's go ahead and do it.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, why don't you kick us off? What you been watching?
Oh boy. Since the last time, quite a bit. I'm still slowly working my way through We Own the City. I think I'm on episode like 3 or maybe 4. So very slowly, but I'm enjoying it. Let me see. Stranger Things season 4. I did, despite all odds, find time to watch all the episodes that came out, largely because I had to get on a plane this week. And yeah, I don't want to talk too much about it because there's a chance we might cover it at some point, but it's fine. There you go. I watched I finished Ocarina of Time.
Hell
Not-
yeah.
Not a full completion as opposed to the last time I played, but I did get just about everything, and yeah, it's a great game. It renewed my belief that that's the greatest game I've ever played for sure.
You get that big
Uh,
sword.
Hell yeah, I did.
Oh,
Kidding me?
yeah.
Big orange sword?
Yeah.
What am I? Who are you talking to right now? I watched George Carlin's American Dream, which was both very entertaining and very bittersweet. That's, for those who don't know, a documentary about the life of George Carlin in 2 parts on HBO by Judd Apatow and company. Good, but very sad at parts. Let's see. Watched What We Do in the Shadows for the first time in a while. Excellent. Got to introduce a young relative to it. It was great. They enjoyed it quite a bit. The Deep End is a show that I've started to watch. It's a true crimey thing, but not quite true, but kind of true crimey, which is about an currently active cult leader, maybe. Like, that's kind of the whole thing. Is it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the show, because to me it feels almost loving and glowing towards this person, which I'm repulsed by her personally. But it, like, they have very close quarters with this. It's true crime, except it's like reality. Like, they're filming, the documentary crew is there filming their processes. Like, they're doing talking heads with this person, and they're trying to explain away their behaviors and shit like that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've only gotten a few episodes in, and I'm not sure how I feel about it just yet, except that I really don't like this person. So that's that. And then, of course, Bob and I were fortunate enough for mine birthday to get to go to the Overlook Film Festival, and we got to see quite a number of movies, some of which include Lily Amanpour's Mona Lisa and the Blood Moon and Resurrection with Rebecca Black, and the Roger Corman documentary
That'd be
Pop
Rebecca
Cinema.
Hall.
Rebecca Hall.
Yeah.
I always do that. That is, for some reason, it's always
love
those
that.
2 names. I don't know why.
They
Anyway,
both love Friday.
Dude, how was that Blood Moon?
but
It's
it was
pretty
weird.
tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely weird.
It was entertaining, though. You will enjoy it.
I still haven't seen her Nightingale or whatever.
Nope.
That's not her.
Did-
No?
different
That's,
director.
no, this
Yeah.
is she walks home alone at night.
Oh,
and
that's
Bad
right. That's
Batch.
right. Yeah. Okay.
And this one is very unique, and it's like the most unique. It's actually set in New Orleans, and it's the most unique take on New Orleans I've ever seen on film. It is not the bog standard version, which I
I
appreciate.
will like that.
But we did.
That was tight. Yeah.
And then let's see, watched a film called Who Invited Them, which I found quite entertaining. A film called Piggy, which was both very cripplingly sad and very effective at what it was.
Yeah.
And then, of course, The Black Phone, which is coming out shortly for wide release. And yeah, that's going to be one I think we're definitely going to cover. I'm pretty
Nice.
sure. So I'm holding my tongue on it.
Damn, that is quite a lot of films.
Yeah. And that wasn't even all of them we wanted to see. We just kind of missed out on a few due to technical difficulties here and there. And then just timing issues, festivals being that way. But
Cool.
it was great. We had a lot of fun, met a lot of people, got to hang out with Mick Garris for a minute. We got to watch our drunkest friend interact with Mick Garris for an extended period of time.
Which
was
was amazing. I loved
Wearing
it.
our logo on his chest as a
on
giant
the hat.
billboard.
Yeah, he was
Mhm.
just a huge walking, straight chilling billboard.
Walking drunken billboard for
There you
straight
go.
chilling.
Fantastic.
He's our own personal drunk mall Santa.
Our drunk baby friend.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah. Juice, why don't you go? What you been watching?
Ooh, it's been quite a while. I can't remember. I watched a documentary. I can't remember if I watched this on net or mentioned this on Netflix called 3 Mile Island. Somebody on our Slack, I think it was Logan, wanted me to cover it as a
I
mini.
think that was Logan.
Yeah, mini cast. So I did watch that one. It's about a nuclear plant in like the Philly area, somewhere around Pennsylvania, somewhere, I think. And so yeah, that was super depressing. It was about this kind of situation that happened in the 70s with like almost like a complete meltdown, and just how people covered it up and did fucked up shit for money, of course, and how they all got away with it. So that's great. I
That's
also
every true crime documentary, it seems like now.
well, I don't.
It's that, or it's
weird.
like the guy who's caught because he's easier to. He's
Yeah.
there. Those are the guys that are easier to study.
It's really weird to me that this one like bummed me out. I watched, the serial killer ones, and that one's terrible. But something about this just, You know, for instance, John Wayne Gacy kills like 30 people, and that's horrific, and finding the bodies and stuff. But something about this system that just allows people to just hurt an entire community with no repercussions and just keep on keeping on for huge profits, it's just like somewhat more crippling, like a depression to me. I don't know, that's really fucked up. So yeah, I'll cover it though, because she requested it. Stranger Things 4, watch that. I can't remember if I mentioned Love, Death, Robot season 3, but I did watch that, and I did do a mini cast on that. I did enjoy that. I always recommend people check out those anthology series, and this one was good as well. One of the biggest things I've been watching just recently is last episode, I think Randy recommended that show Severance that is on, you said, oh, test it out if you have Apple TV or whatever, and I was like, oh shit, I do. Haven't used it since like last autumn, so I was watching it. It's good. It's really good. It's actually,
That's all I've heard about it. Is that
it's
very
got a Black Mirror slash Twilight Zone kind of feel. The music and set designs are really well put together, very interesting, very troubling premise. There's like 9 episodes, and I think I've already burned through like 4 in like 2 days or something, so I've been watching a lot of it. It's very interesting, and I look forward to see like where it goes. But yeah, it's good. I've also been burning through the Disney film still while practicing my Korean. So I watched 101 Dalmatians, which I think has something to do with the Holocaust. Like,
what the fuck?
There's some kind of like, there's gotta be an allegory with the Holocaust or something, because I was like kind of blown away where they're running through the snow, and like they're trying to get all their kids like away from Cruella and stuff, and they're like in the snow and they're hunting them, and they're in this tiny little village, and they're hiding out in barns and like riding through trucks just trying to get home like to safety, and people are sheltering them like horses and stuff. Oh, stay in my barn and I'll hide you away. And I was like, is this about the Holocaust?
Damn.
Like, I truly, because the whole point is like they want to kill the puppies, and they're literally having to be sheltered and like run through the snow, and the kids are like going through this blizzard, and they're like, I'll carry you. And I was like, this is so sad, these little dogs and shit. So I was kind of blown away by that. I also watched,
well, I just searched it, and the first hit I got on Reddit is, today I learned the original 101 Dalmatians novel is very much like the movies, but has a sequel about an alien dog coming to Earth and putting all humans to sleep to prevent nuclear holocaust.
oh,
So very close. Very close.
I also watched Robin Hood, which I always enjoyed as a kid, but it's weird to see how much animation they copied over from like the Jungle Book and shit. Some of those copied like scenes, dances, and stuff like that. It's kind of like throws me off a little bit. And then I've been watching a lot of Bob's Burgers because they finally put all of the seasons on Disney Plus in Korea. At first, they only had like 3. I guess they were doing the translations or something, but now they have all 11. And I heard that movie is really good, so I'm kind of like gearing up for that. And it's replaced The Good Thing for me. It's kind of like my fun watch or whatever. The Good Place. Yeah, what did I say? The Good Thing.
The Good Thing. The Good Thing.
the good Place.
It's just a real good thing.
It's replaced The Good Place as my fun watch or whatever. So yeah, that's about all I've been watching. Robert, right? You're next.
Yep, it's me.
What you been watching?
Checked out a movie called The Ruins. It's like from the early 2000s about these kids who go on a vacation to South America. And they go to this like Mayan temple, and there's this leafy green vine stuff all over it. And it turns out it is sentient and fucks them up.
Whoa.
It's pretty good, man. It's solid. It's got some like really good scares. The sort of the way the vines move and shit doesn't look like lame, which I feel like would be really easy to fail at that.
Okay.
There's some solid gore, and it was like kind of a good summertime watch too, because it's like, you know, sunshiny, and they're like out in the middle of the woods and shit, and you know, dying, but good summertime watch. I also watched Stranger Things 4. Just to keep it vague, I enjoyed it. We might end up doing an episode on that later. I also watched that George Carlin documentary Randy mentioned. I essentially knew nothing about George Carlin. And I think overall the documentary is like 4.5 hours or something like that. And like you learn a shitload about his life. They interview his daughter quite a bit. They found a pile of letters that he and his wife would write back to each other. So there's a lot of like really interesting information about his personal life and stuff. He's also just like a very brilliant man and had a lot of like very interesting things to say. He was able to like convey very complex thoughts in like a few words, like that I just found to be like kind of enlightening. Interesting dude. I watched all the shit Randy mentioned at the Overlook Film Festival as well. We also got the plays horror trivia that was hosted by Ted Gogan, who's a director. Amongst the movies that he's made, We Are Still Here is like a really great movie that is largely the reason Barbara Crampton is like back in the horror genre, acting her ass off now. So like it was cool to meet him. He's a super nice guy. We might end up doing a full-blown like Overlook Film Festival recap episode, so I won't get like too deep into my thoughts on all those movies here right now. Lastly, I watched a movie called Dash Cam. That's a new release. It came out, I think, Friday, June 3rd. It's on VOD, and this is the feature-length, I guess you'd call this the feature-length debut of the director, Rob Savage, I think is his name. The guy that directed that Host from last fall. It was like an hour-long thing that went straight to Shudder. Is like the video seance thing. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Well, he made a movie for Blumhouse called Dash Cam, and it's about this woman who has a YouTube channel where she basically streams herself driving around in her car, making music, really essentially just like playing beats and kind of like freestyling to it. It's like this live music video, like car show. I don't know. It's, I guess, relatively popular, and she goes to like rekindle a friendship with her buddy who lives over in London. And she's like, honestly, a pretty unlikable character. She's very like anti-mask, anti-vax. This movie's like set during the pandemic, just the way Host was. But I think it's in a less interesting way. It gets, I don't know, it just sets up this character to be wildly unlikable from the very beginning, and she never changes. There is no character arc whatsoever. And I ultimately found it to be just kind of one note, I guess. It's a found footage movie where like there are some decent scares, but a lot of the way the movie, there's like sequences that are cut in this movie where like characters are being, thrown around, dragged around. They're moving from one location to another, and you have like no idea or no sense of where you are in the space or how you got from one location to the other. And it just feels like very choppy, and like there's a certain amount of that you expect in a found footage movie.
This isn't a Rob Zombie movie,
right? Yeah, there's just like so much. There's so much here that you're just like, I don't fucking know, like who can do what or why or where we are, and like why we're there, how we ever got there. It just feels the editing is a little bit all over the place, is what I'm trying to say ultimately. And there's just not a whole lot of meat on the bone. And I feel like the character, unlikable though she is supposed to be funny. I think you're supposed to find her funny, and she's just not.
Yeah.
So it's like,
sounds like a bust.
It did not land for me. I was kind of bummed, man, because Host was like such a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
But this one I think pales in comparison to that. But anyway, that is on VOD. If you are interested, check out Dashcam.
All right.
That's pretty much what I have been watching. Hotline screens. We don't have any voicemails this week. If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. General Mangs, do you have any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
How much do you hate Mangs?
Why do you hate them mangs?
0 to 100%. Oh, I'm a man.
Uh,
I don't have.
yeah, I don't have anything super strong.
All right. Well, we're entering the middle of the year. Let me ask this. Call in with your favorite horror film that's come out so far this year and your most anticipated for the back half of the year. How about
Good
that?
call, Randy.
Nice big survey.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know what we missed out on the first half of the year so far. It's I always like asking because there's so much shit that does just get dumped on VOD. It doesn't go to theater. Like it kind of flies under the radar. Good question.
What do you guys think? Well, off the top of your head, what are some of your like really recommend people see so far? If you had to say.
My number one for the year is not a horror, but it's Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Love that.
Which somebody proposed we should cover as a horror film.
Yeah, it's got elements of it for sure, but I think it's.
I still actually have not seen it. I need to see if I can catch that.
It's good. Yeah, definitely good.
Yeah.
I think X is a solid one that's come out this year. And Fresh. If you haven't seen Fresh on Hulu, watch that shit real quick.
True.
It's solid.
And then listen to our episode.
Right. Yeah. Listen to our show.
Yeah.
I'd stand by Scream as well.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Most of the ones I've seen so far this year have not. There's been a couple that have kind of disappointed me a little bit, but yeah, Fresh, X, and then that movie You Won't Be Alone, I think are some of my favorites. Scream was good too. Yeah. North Mang
was all right.
A little maybe that. I guess North Mang and Mangs have been
North Mang and Mang
have been a little disappointing. But I wonder how much of that is expectations. Going in. Oh, Alex Garland. Yeah, I was super excited, and then also Robert Eggers super excited. So.
Well, I think that's true, and I'm worried about Nope now.
The trifecta.
Well, I think both Northman and Men kind of suffer for like in similar ways where like the previous works of the directors were a little more like layered and I guess maybe less accessible to a broader audience. And then we've got the Northman and Men. They're both sort of like, I don't know, just more simple. I mean, they're not like totally dumbed down, but they're just a little more simple than the previous works. And I think you go in expecting these like sort of more wild, art housey type movies, or maybe something that's just got more layers. Yeah, because like I don't know, like Ex Machina, man. Like we have talked about the movie at length, and there's just so much to unpack there. Same with Annihilation, and then you get to this, and it's like pretty straightforward. It's just sort of a shock, I guess.
Yeah. Nope. We'll find out.
Ooh. Wouldn't it be weird if like all of these like directors that make like really thought-provoking movies come out with like really simple stuff, and then we get to Halloween Kills and are just like completely mind blown by how good
just
it
have
is.
our dicks knocked in the dirt by
that would
the best
be
sequel.
David Gordon Green is just like flexing on everybody like motherfuckers.
If that happens, the only conclusion that could be reached is that our expectations mean more to us than the movies themselves, because that
could be
like that's the only takeaway I could take from that, because every movie I expected to love this year has been a little bit disappointing. And then if fucking Halloween Ends turns out to be a fucking barn burner, I just don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. Oh, there's still a lot of movies that people are saying are really good that I haven't even got a chance to. So a lot of them are kind of foreign, I guess. But yeah, I've got a list of like at least 4 or 5 films right now that people have said are good. Master is one. Has anybody seen Master?
Not yet. I don't know that one.
Or You Are Not My Mother, I think is another one. There's one called Hatching or something. Hatching, something.
Yeah, Hatching, I think. Yeah, I want to see that too. I've heard that's good. Yeah. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
A lot of shit. Let us know what your recommendations are. We want to hear from you. New releases, good shit. Hit us up at 904-638-3231. That's going to do it for us this week here at Straight Chilling. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be talking about the last Patreon pick of the second quarter of this year. This one was chosen by our boy Diego. The movie is Possum from 2018. Slam it
Mm.
into your eyeballs. This
Hey,
is
Never even heard of this film.
Really?
yeah. I
Possum?
had not heard of it either. Yeah, Possum.
Oh, you hadn't really? Well, I mean, I say that, but I mostly know it because it's taken a turn on every streaming service I've ever been on for a few
Oh,
months at a time, and
Okay.
it's got a really interesting poster.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen maybe 10 minutes of it, but I didn't get to finish it. So.
All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll find out next week.
Yeah, we're gonna finish it this week here. Slam Possum into your eyeballs. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on our daily Slack channel conversations, hit us up on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can do so. And don't forget about our Joe Bob live watch party this Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.